Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Out of Spec podcast. You join me, Francie, and Jordan on our corner of the internet where we talk all things electric vehicles, and we have a fun one for you today. Jordan and I are going to be helping him through a little bit of perhaps a decision, a brainstorm, because he is in the market for an electric vehicle. So let's plug in. This episode is made possible by the support we get from Fort Collins Kia. If you are in the market for any electric Kia, not only do they never add market adjustments, they will deliver your car to you anywhere in the 48 contiguous states for out-of-spec viewers. More information in the link in the show notes. Okay, Jordan, tell me what's up. You are in the market for an EV. What are your first thoughts? How long have you been considering this? Where are you in the stages of coming to acceptance that you want to add an EV to your profile?
It sounds like being inducted into a cult. This is great. Well, as you know, Francie, I've been spending time with EVs quite a bit. I mean, my first out of spec video was over 3 years ago. And actually, fun fact, my first video for out of spec was a review of my Miata, which has now been viewed over 150,000 times. So people love this Miata. But
as do you.
As do I. And this has been my daily driver for years. And I also now have a Jeep. So I have a few manual combustion engine vehicles. Notably, though, I did sort of have an EV last year. It was a Zero motorcycle. That was a really fun way to kind of live with EVs for a bit. I kind of had another job on the side that I was like commuting to and from, and they had charging there. So it was a good, like, I've been reviewing EVs and testing EVs without a spec for a long time, but it was a toe dipping into like, oh, really living with one. And I don't know. I've been talking to Kyle, and it's like, you know what? It probably is a good look if I do actually drive an EV more often than the ones we have. Although I will make the point that we have so many EVs in out of spec that it's like it's hard to even drive them all, anyways. But that led me down the fun thought train of what EV is right for me. And I've played this game a lot with my brother, actually, of just, we're both car guys and we're like, here's your circumstances, what car fits you the best. Actually, our sister, brother, whatever, partner podcast, Batteries Included, they have a thing called Battery Bargains. Maybe I should go on there as well, because this is just a really fun theoretical decision, but also probably will lead to a real decision, if you ask me.
I was definitely going to bring up Battery Bargains too with the Batteries Included podcast, because it is kind of fun. You called it a game, but to consider, okay, what are the options out there? What do I kind of envision myself using this car for? Is it more of a commute? Is it the road trip? What do I value in a car? And putting all those pieces together to see really what is the best option for you. So I'm excited to be doing this today. I think it's going to be fun. And a lot of people are going through the same process of considering, okay, I want to go electric. Let's see where I start. Let's see what I want, and let's see what is out there. So like you said, you've been able to drive, and we have, just being a part of Out of Spec, a lot of electric vehicles. So you have a lot of experience behind the wheel, of course, all about charging and the battery technology and the size of the car that you might want. Do you have any just off the bat hunches of, okay, it's probably going to come down to these few, or what are you thinking?
Well, here's how this started. Kyle, I guess on May 5th, Tesla announced Model 3 leasing starting at $299 a month. And I was like, oh my gosh, the new Model 3 is so much car. But that's all hearsay, technically. I saw a bunch. I was in LA for the past few weeks. I'm sure we'll have more podcasts and stories on the stuff I was doing out there. But I saw so many Highland Model 3s. I know Tesla doesn't call it Highland. I'm still calling it that because it's a fantastic name, and it just helps differentiate. I mean, we've had Model 3 for 6 years now. Let me just call the new one Highland. And it looks fantastic. I've also seen all the videos. Kyle's video, Marquez Brownlee's. I mean, everyone seems to have a video on it now. And I was just like, that is really actually a lot of car for the cost. But then again, your VinFast story of like how amazing of a lease that was, it's like, okay, this can't be the only one. So it led me down the mental rabbit hole of how many other cars have really good lease deals. And I always like to play this game. I don't typically like hone in on a buying decision, I usually thoroughly research it to death, which is a good and a bad thing, maybe. And sometimes it helps me balance out Kyle. He'll just like make a quick decision sometimes. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look into this and look into all the options. So anytime I'm buying something or making a big decision, I love to see what is out there. So I thought about Polestar 2. There's some good lease deals out there. Ionic 5, Ionic 6, EV6, those Korean kind of sibling cars, all have really great lease deals. ID4 has sort of good lease deals. Like everyone has some sort of compelling deal. VinFast even, although their deal is not as sweet as it was when you got yours. But I've been a bit jealous of your spring roll situation. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I should go a bit EV. So why did all those other cars get nixed pretty quickly?
Mhm.
They're fantastic cars, honestly. But the thing is, I'm looking at, I kind of want to approach it from a very affordable perspective. Like, what car can I get that's really attainable for a lot of people? We fortunately we have the opportunity to drive so many crazy cars, and a lot of people ask me, what is my favorite EV? What one would I buy? I usually oscillate between Taycan or Tesla Roadster. Both of those are very expensive. Tesla Roadster is hard to live with sometimes, and if it breaks, well, what do you do? Send it off to Metlock and Sons or something like that. Tesla won't work on those. So that kind of brought me full circle. Well, so sorry, the Korean cars, the Polestar, those are all great cars, but I love them in their mid to upper trims. When we're looking at base models, which are typically rear wheel drive, maybe sometimes front wheel drive, you're missing a lot of features that I found that I really care about. Like when I look at the base Model 3, so maybe we can pull up the Tesla website and show the ladies and gentlemen, holy crap. Base Model 3 looks pretty good. I do go back and forth a bit. I was talking to Colton, our friend over at Out of Spec Detailing today, about the looks, and he has two Model 3s of quote unquote last generation. Sometimes he likes how they look on the front end. Sometimes I like how this looks more on the front end. I don't know. I go back and forth. I'm sure it depends on the color and everything, but the Model 3 is such a compelling option. Now, Model Y has pretty good deals too, but I just don't want to lease a Model Y knowing the new update is coming probably in the next year.
Mm.
So the time to lease is either when the deal is really good or the car is new. Now, there's sort of an asterisk there because I don't really want to be the early adopter necessarily. Now, for the lease, you're a bit more safe because they cover all the things under the lease. Well, actually, you probably have warranty anyways, but it's just annoying to have a car in the shop fixing early adopter issues. We're seeing some of that with the Cybertruck. But Model 3, this is a facelift. The technology has been there for a while. All they've done is refine the heck out of it, and it's just getting so good. This base model has ventilated seats. That's something I really care about. It comes with autopilot as standard, which notably Polestar 2 does not. Now, the Kia and Hyundai cars have HDA as standard, which is great. That's a really good driver assistance system, but they don't have ventilated seats. I don't even know about heated seats. They might. I haven't thoroughly explored every configurator, but the fact that this has ventilated and heated seats and autopilot, it just checks all the boxes. But I'm curious on your thoughts. I'd love to get your input as someone also in the EV realm.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you're going for a lease too, because I think this is something that a lot of folks may or may not consider. I think generally people that I talk to, they want to make it an investment and buy a car. But with the EV space, the automakers are also saying that leasing is a great option to get people's foot in the door with a new technology, with a new car in general. So I think, was it obvious from the beginning that you were going to lease instead of buy?
Um, I'll say yes because with the leasing, that's where their big deal is. They're like, look, about 300 a month. Now that's with a bit of money down. So it's probably going to be, if I go this direction, it'll be a bit more than 300 because I do also think it makes sense to do instead of the base 10,000 miles a year, probably 15,000 miles a year, just because of how much I drive. Plus, I mean, this is kind of meant to be a car we use for benchmarking out of spec. I mean, this is just, in my mind, kind of the benchmark EV. Like, it's just so good. And for our visual watchers, not just our listeners, we can describe it, but This is the
Mhm.
Model 3 specs. What I'll be looking at is the rear wheel drive because that is the cheap lease. It is, here's the thing, it's slower. It's 5.8 seconds 0 to 60, and it
Okay.
has a bit less range. But the consideration here is it's an LFP battery with better charging than the all wheel drive battery. I think that's an LG pack. And the fact that I can charge it to 100%, in fact, it wants to be charged to 100%, the effective range is actually about the same when you talk on about a daily basis situation. And
Mm.
the fact that it's better on the 10% challenge, most likely, of course, we need to do a bit more testing, but just the charging seems promising. The range seems good. Even though it doesn't peak at a high charging rate, it actually holds it pretty well. So I am just intrigued by this car. A
Okay.
disappointment is that the all-wheel drive one has a better sound system, like
Oh,
quite a few more speakers, but the standard sound system I think is pretty good. Now I haven't heard it yet, but I've heard really good things from trusted reviewers. So, and honestly, it's what's funny is like my cars, the Miata and the Jeep, terrible sound system. So anything is an
mhm.
upgrade. But also, I love good sound systems. I mean, my home theater that I did built during COVID is like really incredible, and so I don't want to say audiophile. There's a negative connotation to that, but there's just I don't know. I've been oscillating between all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive a bit much. But here's the thing: the all-wheel drive long-range Model 3 doesn't get the tax credit, whereas the performance does. And so
Mm.
it's like if you're looking at the price jump to all-wheel drive, you may as well look at the ever so slight price jump to performance. So
Okay.
I don't
Interesting.
know.
Okay, so
Performance is
no?
intriguing, but I think Kyle might. I don't know. Maybe he'll get one.
Okay.
And it would
Okay.
be good to have both ends of the spectrum on what I would say is the benchmark car that all other new EVs or existing EVs should be benchmarking. Although Kyle could argue that for the Taycan because he's over in Germany right now, just beyond impressed with the new Taycan. I am too, but that's also a huge price jump. So for
Mhm. Yeah.
the normal people, this is the benchmark.
Yeah, I think affordability is really important, of course. And yeah, there's incredible technology that Porsche is going after, but they're not going after affordability. So let's get into kind of configuring this Model 3 lease specifically. So we're pulling it up on YouTube here, so y'all can definitely tune in. But Tesla has, their site where you can put in kind of all your choices and get an estimate for what you would pay for a lease or if you were to pay in cash or finance a loan. So with the Model 3, you already said that you wanted the rear wheel drive probably. Is that should we just go with that and see what happens?
I think so. And that's this lease price of $299. That's assuming $29.99 down, so 3,000 down, 36 months, 10,000 miles. Now, if you click on that, we can actually adjust it, and the you can put in my zip code 80007, and then submit, and then the miles. Let's put that at 15,000 because, like I said, we love road tripping, race to Vegas, all sorts of great things. I just don't want to be limited too much. So that makes
Yeah.
the effective payment. Oh well, yeah. I guess there is overage mileage that's possible, but look at how little that adds to the payment. Only $38 a month. So
Hmm.
that's I think that's worth it by getting 50% more mileage just in case, because again, we do probably plan to benchmark this against a lot of cars. Of course, range tests. I hope to do lots of road trips. I'd love to do some out of spec motoring videos with quote unquote the short range Model 3 and show people just how capable it is on road trips. Um,
Hmm.
Now, with Tesla on the configurator, as we're seeing, they have this like well, including estimated taxes and fees, that definitely adds up a little bit. But they also have the maybe it's at the very top of this is the
Probable savings part.
probable
I took
savings.
that off in the beginning, which was I think before you get into this configurator, it's
Mhm.
out here, and I did take that off because they like to factor in how much you'd save on gas and stuff like that. But we're just trying to get the real hard facts and numbers here.
But
So go ahead.
well, I'll say they do. The annoying thing is they factor in state incentives and gas all in one. But if you, I don't know if it's further down this page or if you close out, we can actually adjust that. I'll show you a life hack. I'll show our viewers a life hack. Hit the customize button,
Ooh.
and then we can say gasoline. Just make gasoline cost like $1 per gallon.
Okay.
Let's see what this does. Boom. There we go. So now it assumes there's no money saved by switching to a Model 3. And now if you exit out of this, it should save that. And then it will no longer factor in the gas. It'll only factor in the state incentives, which Colorado has $5,000 for a state incentive. So
There
that's
you go.
something definitely to consider. I do need to
Yes.
look into how the state incentive works, and maybe Max
Mhm.
knows because I know he's done a lot of reporting on this stuff. But
Mhm.
it's like a tax credit, and I don't know if it's like up front or at the end. Of course, they're trying to factor that into the monthly payment, so it's probably still is good to turn off that toggle switch, I guess, to be fully transparent. But this is intriguing, is it not?
It is. So right, if we have it here, the vehicle price is already $39,000, which there are more competitively priced EVs in other countries and in other regions, but for the US market, this is pretty good, especially for all the features that you have been talking about. And I think you brought up a good point of your considerations where you would opt for a certain kind of battery chemistry over perhaps a longer range because of the benefits of the LFP battery. So I think that's something that is easily overlooked by folks who don't know about the battery chemistry in the EVs, just aren't well versed in that and don't even have access to that information. So if we go down to you're not going to trade in or anything. So your estimated monthly payment, $371 a month.
Yep. If you include all the fees and stuff, which it's so annoying that they advertise 300 a month, and they're like, "Oh wait, yeah, you have to do all the fees and
Of
well,
course.
and we
Of
upped the
course.
mileage, which added $38." But
Hmm.
that's still honestly, this is so much car for that amount of money. And
It
of
is.
course, they
It's
mentioned
pretty good.
the probable savings, which is like the Colorado incentive.
Hmm.
So that would be that would I don't know. I need to figure out exactly how that works into it. But this
Hmm.
is like I said, intriguing. And if anyone's playing devil's advocate, which I love to do, by the way,
Hmm.
the
Let's do
cheaper
it.
cars below this could be now. This is based on car price, so I don't actually know what their lease deals are. But Nissan Leaf, that is way less car. Honestly, it hasn't been truly updated. Plus Chatamo, but that's just terrible. Mini hardtop Cooper SE, that's about $32,000. Very limited range. Hyundai Kona Electric, also pretty limited range. Fiat 500e, I love it. So much personality, but very limited range. So basically, after that, you're up to the Model 3 pricing, along with the Hyundai and Kia stuff. Like I said, they're all close to those price ranges. But it's just when you look at the cars that are a bit cheaper than this, it's not much cheaper. And for what it's capable of, like supercharger network, which of course that's a top topic right now, but still,
Mhm.
I just road tripped the Cybertruck back from LA, no issues. And well, okay, not no issues, but mostly fine.
Hmm.
And
Another podcast topic for another
another
time.
exactly, good teaser there. And all these other cars are just worse at road trips. They're fantastic city cars. Even the Leaf, honestly, if you can find a good deal on one, it really is a good city car. But road tripping, just not possible. So, home charging, which I do have the capability of home charging. I have a NEMA 1450 in my garage, and I'll see a lot of destinations I go to have charging, and I'm just so fascinated to live with an LFP battery. Notably, Ryan, who's been on our team, he has an LFP Model 3. There's some other
Mhm.
LFP vehicles out there. It would definitely take a shift in my brain space because I'm so used to saying, oh, don't charge past 70 to 80% on a daily basis. Whereas the LFP is like, please charge me full. It's fine. So, yeah,
Totally. I
that's
mean,
where
I
I'm at.
think that's really important to consider the battery, which is the kind of testing that we do in general, and your use case really. So I do think that this seems to be a good option. It would be a good option for a lot of folks. So when you see this, you're considering it against others. You've weighed it up, and you're thinking, What now, Jordan? Okay, so it would be around $300 a month. You'd figure out how to get that Colorado state tax incentive, which is we don't know the exact requirements of that, but we do know Colorado has been very EV forward. They've last year was record EV sales in the state, so pretty cool to see that. What are you thinking? How close are you to making a decision at this point?
I'd say pretty close. So actually, Colton and I went to Tesla today to try to look and experience the LFP rear wheel drive. They said the two they had were out of commission, like needed something or service or something. I don't know.
Okay.
They were honestly, they were a bit understaffed and like it was kind of chaotic there. This is Tesla Loveland, which is the only Tesla for miles up there.
Ah,
So I will probably, but that's fine. We asked to test drive a car. They're like, sure, we have a rear wheel drive out there. And then we walked out there and it was a dual motor, clearly badged. And so they just didn't really know. But honestly, I'm not upset. I want to try everything. And like I said, I've tried all the other cars in question, from the Fiat to the Leaf to the EGMP cars, the Kia and Hyundai cars. This was my first time in a new Model 3, and I was floored. It rides so well. The NVH is actually not. I mean, it's impressive compared to Kyle's 2018 Model 3, super early Model 3, but compared to the like most refined but still prior gen Model 3 from like last year, like Colton has, not a
mhm.
big difference, but still decently quiet cabin.
And
Materials, fit and finish.
NVH stands for noise, vibration, and harshness, right?
Yes, yes,
For
good
those who
call.
might not know.
So, yes, not much noise, vibration, or harshness. They've improved the windows. I guess they're a bit more thick or something. All the materials are just solid, like the fit and finish. They've been building Model 3s for 6 years. They've kind of
Mhm,
gotten it figured out.
mhm,
So I got to experience the dual motor all wheel drive, which of course is a bit faster and has the better
mhm,
sound system. It was good, but it did require some tweaking to get it like really dialed in. So the thing is that the better sound system has more tweeters in the rear plus two subs. Not big subs, but notably, rear passengers might have a better sound experience, and there's a bit more bass throughout the car, but it
mhm,
does take some tweaking to get used to. The base model, rear wheel drive LFP Model 3, has the base sound system, which is the same speakers, just a few less of them. And
mm.
I am hoping I'm cool with that. In fact, it could be an opportunity. We could, explore whenever some company comes out with an aftermarket subwoofer that's reversible. That'd be a really fun thing to try.
Mhm.
So if anyone's working on that, developing that, let me know. Let us know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sound system is really important for me because I listen to music in the car and I always have something playing. Usually,
Yeah,
it's a part of the experience. I can't say that the VinFast VF8 has a great sound system.
it's the
End of
worst.
sentence. And then it's pretty bad. But then I also wonder, you're mentioning a subwoofer, like this aftermarket stuff. Would you consider doing a subscription for full self-driving capabilities in a Model 3 if you were leasing it, Jordan?
Maybe, because it is impressive. I spent a long time in LA this past few weeks. Motor Trend had our truck for a bit, for a few days, and I was helping them with that, kind of there with them. But also, I was driving their long-term loaner Model Y, which had full self-driving and FSD 12 point whatever. It was 12.3.5 at the time, and it was impressive. And even today, Colton and I on the test drive. The test drive car had FSD. We just turned it on and let it take us. We didn't put a destination. We were just like, where's it going to go? And it was so much fun. It was like like the Google, like get lucky or button or whatever. I'm feeling lucky button. It's like, it was like that. It was like, let's just see where it goes. And that was like, I don't know. I'm just so fascinated by it. I mean, maybe, let us know in the comments, but should we do like constant, consistent FSD content? I think that's a huge, somewhat missing factor out of spec, where there's so much constant development with full self driving. I do
Hmm.
think we should be covering that more, and maybe if my car had that, we could. So I'm just thinking of
And
all the things we could film and document through this car. Of course, comparing it to all the other cars, like I said, but it was a good informational test drive. So I hope to test drive the rear wheel drive soon. I kind of know what to expect. I've driven Ryan's LFP rear wheel drive from last year, so the pre facelift, pre Highland, and sure, it's slower, but it still is engaging enough. I think it still is fun to drive, and even his sound system was fine, and I think the new one's even better. So I don't think I can't think of what would be a deal breaker. Even the test drive, I was basically like, okay, I'm going to get a white one, which actually adds a little bit to the cost. We should probably mention that. And I thought I
Mhm.
was going to get white on white with a white interior. I love Kyle's Model 3 white interior. The new Model 3 changes that. I don't actually like the new white interior. The one we test drove had the black interior, but the white one adds huge door cards that are white and they just don't look as good. And the seats are perforated now because they're ventilated, and it also doesn't look good in white. So
Hmm.
technically, that is an opinion. You are
And it's
obviously
cost
entitled
more
to your
money.
own. But yeah,
So,
the white was more money, and I think looked worse. Whereas the black interior had a cool panel on the inside, where the white one's just white, like fake leather. The black one, as you can see, you can kind of see it. It has like this I don't know, textured fabric to it, which just felt really cool and looked really cool.
mhm.
There's
Mhm.
ambient lighting now. Just a lot of things are great. I don't like the buttons on the steering wheel. I of course prefer stocks, but small gripes at this point. I'm not going to pretend it's perfect. We're not Tesla shills over here. There's a lot of things they do right and should be benchmarked against, and there's a lot of things that I'm like, what are you doing?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I feel like when it comes to a lease, you're not buying it. So unless it's a real deal breaker for you, you are spending money on it for, how long is it? 3 years. But you might as well go with the cheaper option, in my opinion, as long as it's comfortable. You don't have to pay for paint or interior. Fine, don't add it to my monthly bill. So I think your personal preferences also go along with that. Affordability aspect as well. So Jordan, you might be getting. Would you still go with the white paint?
I think so. The white on
Okay.
the outside is the when we got to look at pretty much all the colors, which was great. And I saw
Mhm.
so many new Model 3s in LA. It was crazy. And it just reaffirmed that white was my favorite color. I wish they had better colors, honestly. Sure, they have blue and red. I'm glad, but they're not a great blue or a great red. Even ultra red, people are like, oh, it's better, but it's just not.
Okay. Yeah,
Um, it's
I
it's
see that
not
it.
the beautiful deep reds that like Mazda and some of the other companies have. Like it's just it wishes. So may as well get white. It's clean. If we even wanted to ever wrap it, like white or black is usually the best color to wrap. So you
Would you
know,
wrap a leased vehicle?
you could. I don't know if I'd really care. And ironically, it would match my white Miata, my white Jeep. So I guess I could just keep it white. Which is
You're
so
really
lame because I
making your
love
lineup.
bright colored cars, but here we are.
Sometimes if you're driving it yourself, it makes a difference. But it does sound like a good option when you do weigh it out against the rest. Folks like to ask me, okay, what are the best EVs on the market? What's on the market? And of course, I'm like, well, of course, Tesla. Tesla's doing great. They've got the charging network, they have the bells and whistles, they have a history of making these EVs. It's a good option. There are other options out there, but apparently, when you line them up, you definitely are leaning for the new Tesla Model 3 Highland refresh, rear wheel drive, white paint exterior, stick with the black zero cost interior, a 36-month lease, 15,000 miles a year, and some sort of down payment. And then, of course, your state incentives, which seemingly create a pretty good deal around maybe just under $400 a month.
Which is again, yeah, a great deal. I have ample amounts of free charging or charging at home, which is cheap. I have time of use
Mhm.
charging at my house, so I could schedule the car to avoid charging at the peak hours. Like
Love that.
there's there's so many good things about this car. And again, I'm not a blind Tesla lover. I love driving other cars, but it's like when I look at what I care about, Tesla really is doing it correctly. The software experience is sublime. It's the only car that I drive that I just don't even care if it has autopilot or Apple CarPlay or not because it doesn't need it. I can send directions to the car. Its route planning is phenomenal. It's usually quite accurate. I can't wait to try it on some road trips. That just everyone's unique, and I personally love, you know, diving into what might be the best car for someone's solution. I love being on the Battery Bargains shows, and we could maybe even do some over here on the Spec podcast. It's just a really fun way to connect with someone and kind of help steer them in the best direction for them. You know, I would never take bias into that consideration, because I do love asking people open-ended questions and figure out really what is best for them. And I love that people ask. Sometimes they wonder, like, am I being a burden asking for expertise? And it's like, no, like, this is our job to study the
We
industry.
love it.
Let us help you. And so I encourage anyone who's curious to, like, write into the show, message
Yeah.
us directly. We're on all sorts of apps. I think it's fun, and I'd love to hear what you care about, or even the car you chose. Maybe you already bought one and you love to share your story. I think that's super fun. We'd love to have some long-term ownership mindsets on here, like, oh, you've had a so and such car for a year or 2 years. Like, how's it been? What was surprising?
Yeah.
Your lease is coming up. Are you buying it out? Are you happy to give it back? I mean, there's so many fun, or maybe not fun, things to consider. So we'll see where I'm at if I do go through with this, which I'm leaning towards it heavily. And it'll be fun to cover and even compare to our current. I know Kyle's Model 3 is a performance, but it's an old one, first year basically. So it'd be
Yes.
interesting to compare.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see, how Tesla has improved and have a long-term lease with this EV that is, the benchmark, as you and a lot of other people say. I'd love to hear what our audience thinks about Jordan's possible decision with this EV. And like you said, write in about the ones you have. I know Diane, who is, number one OG fan and fam at the Out of Spec podcast, has an Ioniq 6 and a Rivian R1T, and she has commented before on what she likes about it. And I think this is great to share information in the comments, wherever we can find these discussions to help each other make these decisions. So let us know your opinion on. I mean, I love Jordan's approach. He's considering all the options. He, is obviously very educated on this, and you are really comparing what will work best for you, which is very important. And I think there are options out there, and this would be a good option and a pretty affordable option for a really quality product on the market.
This will
right
hold me over until Taycan depreciates enough. Let's just say that.
Yes, until you find a really nice resale of a Porsche Taycan, which will certainly happen. So, Jordan, do you have any kind of timeline on this when you're trying to figure it out by?
Kind of soon. I mean, we've got a lot of events coming up, so it's hard to find time to be home. But it's the discussions are happening, I guess you could say. So I'm
That
doing
sounds
my
good.
research. I'm doing my driving homework. I always encourage people to, we tend to be nerds. Us at Out of Spec and all of our awesome viewers at Out of Spec. Y'all are nerds. We're nerds. We tend to look at what's on the paper, specs on paper, and that does not properly sell you a car. So butts and seats, drive homework. You got to experience the car. Sometimes you're like, wow, the seating position is terrible. I didn't know that from the specs on paper. So I'm going to drive that point home before we sign off of the show. Drive the cars you're curious about.
Definitely get behind the wheel. That's the most important. Take a friend or family member, whatever it is, and do your due diligence, of course. And who knows, Jordan, maybe you'll have the Model 3 lease by the time I'm out there in Colorado this summer with the VinFast. We'll have to see. But thank you for coming onto the podcast to help us, learn more about how you're making this decision and what you're considering along the way. And hopefully it was helpful for anyone who's in a similar state that Jordan is in terms of, okay, I want to get an EV. Let's consider what is on the table, what I want, what I need. Thanks, Jordan.
Yep. You're welcome. Anytime.
Yeah, thanks everyone for plugging in with us today for another episode of the Out of Spec podcast. Let us know what your questions, your comments, share this with someone that you think would find this interesting. Like the video, subscribe, let us know what you want us to check in on next. We truly love hearing your thoughts and reading your comments. So keep them up. We'll see you next time in the next episode. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.